In the past decade, while SpaceX and Blue Origin captured the public imagination with reusable rockets and grand visions, a different kind of space company promised something more subtle, more elegant: retail convenience in orbit. Virgin Orbit, led by Richard Branson, didn't build massive launch pads. It built a flying launch platform, a modified 747 named Cosmic Girl that carried a rocket under its wing to the edge of the atmosphere. It wasn't selling brute force. It was selling flexibility, a boutique service for satellites that needed a specific ride to a specific place. To its investors and the media, it looked like the future: agile, asset-light, and brilliant. And that is what makes its collapse so brutally instructive. Despite revolutionary technology, a legendary brand, and hundreds of millions in funding, Virgin Orbit did not fade into the background of the new space race. It imploded, filing for bankruptcy in 2023 after a single $100 part caused a catastrophic failure over the Atlantic, erasing its credibility and its future in a matter of weeks. This is not a story about a rocket that simply blew up. It is not a story about a lack of funding or technical genius. And it is not a story about the space market being too small. What happened to Virgin Orbit is a fundamental misreading of commerce, recognizable in any empty storefront on Main Street. This is the story of how a company with a breathtaking product failed to find a single, sustainable customer. It was dismantled not by physics, but by a business model that treated an exquisite niche service as a mass-market commodity. It was a luxury boutique that opened in a town that only shopped at discount supercenters. This is the story of how Virgin Orbit didn't just fail to reach orbit, it failed to find a market. To understand why this space-age collapse feels so familiar, you need to understand what it was actually selling. Virgin Orbit's core product was access. For a premium price, it offered satellite companies a flexible, air-launched ticket to space, freeing them from the fixed schedules and locations of ground-based pads. It was solving for precision, not for cost. By the early 2020s, Virgin Orbit appeared to have a captive niche. It had completed successful launches. It had contracts. It had the sheen of Branson's empire. To its leadership, it felt like a disruptor, a company that had elegantly sidestepped the old, clunky infrastructure of spaceflight. But the commercial space market was changing with the ruthless logic of Walmart. SpaceX was perfecting the opposite model: ruthless cost efficiency and volume. Its Falcon 9 rockets, landing on barges to be reused, were driving the price per kilogram to orbit into the ground. The market didn't want a tailored suit. It wanted a cheap, reliable t-shirt in bulk. Virgin Orbit, however, remained confident in its boutique. It spoke of unique orbits and customer service. Yet its fundamental economics were perilous. Each launch was estimated to cost over $50 million. For a payload a fraction of a Falcon 9's, making its price per kilogram astronomically non-competitive. That confidence in its uniqueness would become the anchor of its demise. What made this moment especially lethal was that Virgin Orbit still looked innovative on paper. It had a working system. It had a marquee brand. But that brand and technology created the illusion of a business, masking a fatal flaw: a customer base that was vanishingly small and price-sensitive. This was the moment Virgin Orbit stopped thinking like a transportation company and started thinking like a conceptual art project. The market impact was immediate. Potential clients calculated the numbers and chose SpaceX or other cheaper providers. Launch cadence slowed to a trickle. The company that once prided itself on agility became fragile, desperate for the one perfect mission that would prove its model. Space launch is a brutal volume business. Price, reliability, and frequency must align. At Virgin Orbit, those pillars began pulling in opposite directions. To be reliable, it needed more launches to test and refine. To afford more launches, it needed cheaper costs. To lower costs, it needed volume it could never achieve. It was a death spiral customers could sense in every delayed mission and high quote. Then came the final, symbolic failure. In January 2023, during the historic first orbital launch attempt from UK soil, a cheap misplaced filter caused the rocket's engine to overheat and shut down. The mission, and with it, Britain's space ambitions, fell into the sea. The boutique had one chance to prove its craftsmanship, and it delivered a defective product. Trust in this business is the only currency, and it was gone. While SpaceX relentlessly drove down costs and increased its launch manifest to weekly events, Virgin Orbit moved in the opposite direction. Funding evaporated, morale turned to despair, the vision was replaced by liquidation. The irony was cosmic. Virgin Orbit possessed technology and glamour that startups could only dream of. But instead of ruthlessly adapting to the price-dominated market, its leadership chose to believe in the inherent value of its uniqueness. Virgin Orbit was not losing a technological race. It was being priced out of existence by a market that valued economics over elegance. Every quarter, the gap widened. Competitors' prices got lower, their reliability higher. Virgin Orbit, by contrast, felt increasingly like a fascinating museum piece, beautiful to look at, but not something you'd bet your satellite on. This commercial decay mattered more than engineers realized. The space business, at its core, is about trust. Clients interpret technical failure as existential risk. When a launch provider feels like a precarious gamble, customers leave, and they do not come back. By 2023, the consequences were inescapable. After the UK failure, new contracts vanished. It filed for bankruptcy, shocking the industry not because it failed, but because it failed so completely despite its pedigree. This was not a gradual decline. It was a commercial extinction event. What makes the Virgin Orbit collapse uniquely prophetic is that it provides a perfect formula for failure in the ultimate high-stakes environment. The formula is this: a revolutionary product, post-massive capital burn, X0, mass market demand, R, certain collapse. But this isn't just a business lesson, it is a law of nature written across the cosmos itself. And the proof arrived in the summer of 2025. On July 1, 2025, the Atlas telescope system in Chile discovered an object moving at impossible speed. Designated 3I Atlas, it was confirmed by NASA and ESA as only the third known interstellar visitor. A comet born around another star, now screaming through our solar system on a one-way hyperbolic trajectory. 3I Atlas is more than a scientific marvel. It is the universe's own case study, proving why Virgin Orbit was doomed from the start. Think about its path. 3I Atlas is a cosmic startup. It's unique, it's agile, it's breathtaking. But it lacks mass. It lacks the gravitational pull to anchor itself to a star, to establish a stable orbit in a permanent system. So, it is condemned to wander the void, a spectacular but fleeting visitor, destined to be slingshotted back into the interstellar darkness. Virgin Orbit was 3I Atlas. It was a dazzling, nimble newcomer, but it lacked the mass, the financial gravity, the operational scale, the cost structure to achieve a stable orbit in the marketplace. It was destined for a hyperbolic trajectory through the business world, a brilliant ingress, a moment of breathtaking attention, and a violent ejection into the void of insolvency. The giants, the stars and gas giants of our industry, are different. SpaceX, NASA, national agencies. They have mass, they have the gravity to shape markets, attract partners, and anchor ecosystems. They can afford to be patient, to iterate, to fail. Their orbits are stable. 3I Atlas is the cosmos demonstrating the unforgiving rule. Space, whether interplanetary or interstellar, is a domain for giants. Everything else is just a visitor. Virgin Orbit did not die because space is hard. It died because its leaders forgot the first rule of any retail, terrestrial, or orbital. You must have a customer who can and will pay more than what it costs you to serve them. They built a monument to a niche in a market that only rewards scale. The business of space is not about rockets and agility. It is about economics, market fit, and the relentless, crushing gravity of scale. Virgin Orbit had the technology, the brand, and the vision to be a player. But it chose to be a brilliant comet instead of a planet. And comets, no matter how bright, always burn up or vanish. 3I Atlas is now sailing past the sun, a silent testament written in ice and dust. Its lesson is clear for anyone on Earth dreaming of the stars. You can be a spectacular visitor, or you can be a permanent giant. But in the end, the cosmos only has room for one of them.